Hello, I'm Catherine Anaya, and welcome to Conversations with Catherine. I am very happy to have with me my guest, MJ Fievre. She is a speaker and author of several books, including her newest, which is Badass Black Girl, Questions, Quotes, and Affirmations for Teens. MJ, it's nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, I'm very excited to talk to you. You've been a writer since you were a teenager in Haiti. You now live in Miami. 19 years old when you signed your first book contract. I would say that definitely makes you a badass.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I started very young. And at that point in my life, I didn't really have a lot of role models because we did not have the kind of access that we have today with the internet and all those wonderful connections that we're able to make online. I had to rely on my teachers at my high school, and I'm so thankful for everything teachers do. Um, I have a special love and affection for teachers.
As we all should, definitely. MJ, I want to talk a little bit about the book. I love the title, by the way. And I'm just kind of curious, what your idea or definition of a badass Black girl is.
For me, a badass Black girl is a girl who knows who she is, or if she doesn't yet, if she's still searching for herself, she has that determination to find out who she is, meaning that she knows values, she knows a mission, or she's on a quest to find what's important in her life and how to navigate the different spaces that we occupy as badass Black girls and women.
So it's this constant evolution. It's not being perfect, obviously, but it's constantly being a work in progress, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So describe for me your.
Well, it's a book. Here's the cover. A book that's been really important for me to write. So I grew up in the Caribbean in the 80s and 90s, and it was before the boom of publishing, right? So a lot of the books that I read as a young girl were imported from French speaking countries like Canada or France. And I couldn't find myself in those books.
Mm.
I learned a lot from books. I loved a lot of the books that I read as a kid, but it was very rare to find a Black character in the book that was my age, that was facing the issues that I was facing as a Black girl. And this feeling, this discontentment of not finding myself stayed with me for a long time. When I started writing, I made sure that all my characters were a reflection of my own life. I started by writing fiction, a lot of adventure books, young adult novels, and they were all taking place in the Caribbean with Black characters dealing with Black issues. But I still wanted to be able to write the kind of book that I wanted to read, the kind of nonfiction book that I was looking for growing up. I was really into self-help and any kind of empowerment book. And I always meant to be able to write for young Black kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I first needed to gain the experience that I needed to be able to kind of convey the information that I had. So I waited until I became a teacher. And before I became a teacher, I became an aunt. I'm not a mother, but I've been an educator for a long time now, with a special interest in helping my Black students find themselves within the system, because unfortunately there is still a lot of racism within school systems, and sometimes kids don't always know where to turn to, dealing with problems like bullying or just self-esteem, because again, traditionally, when you talk about the traditional uh, Eurocentric standards of beauty, Black is not it. it wasn't it when I was growing up. People, when you imagine someone who's beautiful, the first image that comes to your mind is not black. And a lot of kids are dealing with a lot of self-esteem issues because of it, trying to find their place in a world where they're not seen as handsome or beautiful, where they're not seen as intelligent as other people, as their peers. So just doing this work with my students where I'm teaching them strategies to feel good about themselves, because I was lucky enough to have parents who really believed in me, friends who really believed in me, so that yes, I still dealt with some of those issues, those self-esteem issues, but I had found ways to overcome them. And after a while, I felt confident that I could start writing about it.
And
It's
sharing some of those experiences, right?
exactly. And that was the beginning of Badass Black Girl. I met my wonderful publisher, and when we brainstormed the idea, they loved it. And now we have a book.
Yes, here you are. Would you call it a self-help book? Is it a mixture of self-help, inspiration, and part memoir? You know, how would you describe it?
I call it an empowerment book
Mm.
because I think it's an important word for a young Black girl being raised nowadays. There are so many mixed messages. There is this idea that yes, Black people are finally um, getting the kind of attention that they've been striving for in terms of equality, in terms of people accepting diversity. But at the same time, there is also this pushback where very often we're accused of having a victim's mindset, that we're always complaining, and that racism doesn't exist the way we try to make it seem. So the idea of empowerment is being able to navigate through all those mixed messages, finding your center and being able to say, you know what, this is who I am, this is what I'm fighting for, this is my experience with the world, and I'm not going to let anyone tell me what that experience actually is, because I'm the one who knows, because I'm the one who's going through it every day.
Well, I'm glad that you touched on current events because I personally have been very encouraged by seeing the youth who have been out there protesting, leading the protests, being very involved, being advocates, using their voice and their platforms to try to make a difference when it comes to racial justice and equality. What's been your impression? Have you been impressed by seeing so many young people out, you know, in the forefront of this?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of activism that is taking place. Sometimes, of course, as someone who has a nieces and nephews, as a teacher, I do worry that um, there is sometimes a lot of misinformation. So I'm always an advocate of informed activism as opposed to the kind of activities that are very incendiary and don't lead to the results that um, the activists might be looking for. So I continue to do my part, share information, share updates, so that whoever gets in touch with me or get to see my words, get to read my words, they get as much information as possible, because there is still a lot of misinformation going around. And I think it's really important to remain centered, but with the acknowledgement that being quiet has never worked, not
Mm-hmm.
just for Black people, but for any group. You stay quiet, nothing changes. Something has to be done. But also, as a um, small business owner, of course, I'm worried when the protests turn into riots, and when people are losing their small businesses, because I know how much I would be hurting if I lost my small business.
Well, and there's a difference between people who were rioting and people who
Right.
were actually out there protesting for the right cause.
Exactly, and that's the kind of information that I make sure that I put out there. People were calling those riots protests. They're not the protest. Those are activities that have been taken over by a few and turned into something that they were not meant to be. And unfortunately, can you really have a protest without a riot? Um, we strive to. We have a lot of protests happening that are completely peaceful, but when a small group decides to turn it into something else, there is so much the organizers can do, there is so much the peaceful protesters can do, and it's really unfortunate that some people are trying to make it seem like it's the exact same people organizing both, because it's not.
Well, talk to me a little bit about who inspires and empowers you. Who do you personally consider a badass Black girl?
My role models have always been writers, because growing up in a country like Haiti, a country that is known for its daily violence, and I also come from a very complicated family life. I turn toward books, and writers have always been my role models. The first Black female writer that I ever read was a Haitian writer named Margaret Papillon. And I discovered a lot of facets of Haiti and a lot of facets of Black life through her characters. She writes mostly fiction. And later, when I moved to the United States, that's when I really discovered the work of Edwidge Danticat. Um, I had heard of her before in Haiti. People were recommending her books all the time, but I never had the opportunity to really get her books until I moved here. I was 21 and I discovered this gorgeous voice. And Edwidge Danticat writes fiction and nonfiction. So I was able to see Haiti through both lenses, and also America through both lenses of fiction and nonfiction, and see what was and what could be. And those have always been my role models. Becoming a badass Black girl means that you understand the kind of world you live in, and those writers, they understand the realities of this world. They know how to approach the world in a non-naive way. They know how to make a difference. And I consider the entire um, work of Edwidge Danticat um, a, a big essay on badassery, because uh, I mean, a message is just breathtaking. There are other writers out there doing a fantastic job in terms of showing us what a badass Black girl should be. Fabienne Josaphat is another writer with Haitian roots, who's written extensively about the Black experience, both in Haiti and in the United States. And the reason why I keep referring to writers who come from Haiti, of course, because of my own background, I was born in Haiti, but I think that um, growing up in the Caribbean, in a country that has been independent for way longer than emancipation happened in the U.S., we we are able to see um, we really get to think about the consequences of slavery, what it meant for us in Haiti to become free in 1804, and what it meant for the people of America to have to deal with segregation and racism for so long. It gives you a wider perspective. I mentioned before what can be and what should be. It really gets you thinking, and those writers are really helping me grasp all the meaning that there is to grasp in terms of um, what it means to be a Black girl, a Black woman in 2020.
Well, you write about that not only in your books, but also on your website, which I very much enjoyed. You have so many powerful and positive messages there. And I really appreciated the vlog that you have, Badass Black Girl vlog, because you have these conversations with successful people, leaders, who are not only talking about their achievements, but they're also talking about their struggles. And I find that really important, especially for young people, to hear that, you know, everything isn't as perfect as it may appear to be on social media, and that we do have certain struggles that we have to overcome sometimes to get where we want to be. And I find that very empowering. Was that intentional on your part to make sure that these conversations were as real as possible?
Absolutely, because unfortunately, very often people see um, the success, but they don't think about the journey and the struggles that continue even when you reach that point of success. One of the people that I interviewed, for instance, another badass Black girl, Ketsia Theodore Farrell, she's also a writer. She lost everything a few years ago. She had reached the pinnacle of personal success. Her books were selling well. Her career was flourishing, and she was finally leading the life that she had been working toward for years, and her house burned down and the insurance company wouldn't cover anything. And I like to keep it real. What success is not um, just the goal. Success is a state of mind, because
Mm-hmm.
the reason why Ketsia, for instance, is a badass Black girl to me is because she was able to lose everything and still remain herself and still continue being the badass that she's always been. And that's real strength. So it's about understanding what it takes to get to your goal, and what it means when you don't get to your goal, or when you get there and you lose everything. So it's finding that part of yourself that will prevail no matter what happens around you. Who are you inside?
Mm-hmm.
That what part of you is going to remain true no matter the circumstances, no matter what people tell you, no matter what tribulations you get to face. And that's one message I wanted to give, not just interviewing people who can be seen as role models, but also people who are open about the struggles that they have faced, that they're still facing, with the message, you know what, it's a constant struggle. And it's not just for Black people. I mean, life is a struggle for everyone. One day is shiny, the next day you suddenly lose everything. And what do you do then? Whether it's something material, whether it's someone you love, whether it's your health. We have so much to lose, and we lose something all the time, whether uh, whether people see the impact on your personal life or not. The loss is real. And how do you remain true to yourself despite those circumstances?
Yes, discovering your inner power. You mentioned something in your vlog, and you also mentioned it briefly in this conversation, a word you use called badassery.
Yes.
How would you describe that?
So just, I don't see it as perfection, or I don't see it as being, as knowing exactly what you're doing. I don't see it as being overly confident. Badassery is about knowing where you are right now and where you should be going. So it's that awareness. It's a state of awareness, and also taking responsibility for yourself. Meaning, eh, I know where I am right now. I know it's not anybody's fault but mine. I know what I have to do to change things that are not working for me right now. And when I say that, it's not anybody's fault but mine. Yes, we do live in a system that very often doesn't value uh, Black lives or Black work or Black anything, but there are things we can do to change it, and no one else but ourselves are gonna do anything to change the status quo. So it's assuming responsibility for our future, assuming responsibility for our well-being. That, for me, that's what badassery is: just awareness and acceptance of the way things of the power that we have to change things.
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations on this book. I find the conversations on your vlog fascinating, and I've really enjoyed talking with you and listening to your perspective, which is extremely important. Obviously, every perspective is important, but I really value the information that you've provided today and your thoughts and perspective. So thank you for making the time to chat with me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you, MJ. I want to let people know that they can find your website at badassblackgirl.com, and your book, Badass Black Girl, is available on Amazon. Yes, right there. Love the cover, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for watching Conversations with Catherine. Please remember to hit the subscribe button, like, and comment while you're here. I'll see you next time.